humanitarian events. I want to talk about the Panama Canal, which I just heard got bought up by
BlackRock. Yeah.
BlackRock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Good thing China didn't buy it.
Well, that's what I heard PBD guys talking about this morning. But my first thought was, and they also mentioned that this is like the 30th port they bought up. How is this a
Yeah.
good thing?
I don't think it's not a good thing. It's a terrible thing. This is globalist control of international waterways.
That was my
One
thought.
of the most
That's my thought. The
one of
ports
the most
can,
important passageways
yes,
in the entire world.
control
And
supply. Perfect.
right, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And so BlackRock taking it. Yeah, it's an American company, but look what they've done. Look who's running it. It's the
Yeah.
craziest thing. Yeah, we could talk through that.
Let's get started with I
Okay.
wanted to talk about because dude, this is really in our household between Lisa and I and extended family
Yeah.
every day now. It's when are we playing God? And I mean this literally that statement has come up because just cutting to the chase.
Yeah.
When we are using the latest in medical technology to prolong someone's life, and you got to weigh what is the quality of life and all that, when are you play the ultimate question? When are we playing God versus God will take them when He
Yeah.
deems necessary?
Yeah.
How
No,
do
this is a tough one.
you've had to tackle this question before, I'm
I
sure.
have. Yeah. I my with my cousin Keith.
Oh
He
yeah,
had
yeah.
ALS, and he, boy, what a terrible disease that is. That's like the worst thing that can happen, I think, where you slowly start to lose all of your functionality of your body
Your
parts.
motor
And
function, yeah.
yeah, he couldn't by the, and it happens gradually. Like first, you can't move your arms. It depends on who you are. It doesn't. It's random how it happens, but I saw where he couldn't use his arms, and then pretty soon he was, needing walking was a problem, and then pretty soon just laying down, he had to lay down, and then eventually he could only lay down, and he could kind of talk. He was on a ventilator. We had to read his lips. It was just crazy, crazy time, and in the end, he had said that if he couldn't communicate any longer, he wanted us to take him off the ventilator.
Mm,
And so that's it right there, making that decision. Okay, so he's in a full coma now. He can't communicate. And so I know what his wishes are. And we took him off of the ventilator at hospice, and he died
mm,
right away. And
mhm,
like making that decision was so daunting, even though that was his choice. But still, we had to do that.
mhm.
And I- you know, I felt like if I were in his position, I would want to go home to the Lord as well, rather than be caught in that trap, which was his broken body. And so it was very sobering, but also, in a way, I felt like we rescued him.
I totally agree. And this is really important because there's no, boy, to say the least, there's no one size fits all.
Mm-mm.
Everyone is different. Lisa said this last night to me. She said, after we had this conversation, I said, well, thank you. You just provided the whole upfront part of our show. Um, she said, I know you. So we start talking on a more personal level about
Yeah,
wishes. When something happens, she goes, I know you. First time you can't move a couple limbs and you're going to want out
right,
because activity means everything to you. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I mean, for sure. And she goes, whereas, someone else, if they could watch TV, they're going to be okay with that, but
right.
otherwise need care.
Yeah.
And where do you fall? And there's more questions, but let's start here. Where do
Well,
you,
this is a tough one because we have these different stages in our lives, and we can tolerate different things. Back to my cousin Keith, there was a choice that he had to make, and it was whether or not to go on the ventilator. He knew that if he went on the ventilator, he was going to be attached to that for the rest of his life, or he could choose not to be on the ventilator, and of course that would speed his demise.
He would
But
experience that, right?
right, and
Okay.
he knew that he would be going down pretty quickly, and
Hmm.
so he had to think about that. I remember it was an agonizing decision for him. And I remember coming back to the hospital, and he looked like he had been freed from the torment of that decision. And I asked him, what are you going to do?" And he said he's going to go on the vent. And he felt like, even though he didn't want to be tied to that vent, he felt like there was still something left for him in his life that he still needed to accomplish and be around his family. And then the amazing thing that happened too is that during the time he was on the vent, he had been estranged from his mother and his son. And I got to be a part of bringing his mother and his son
Wow.
to his bedside, and they made amends
Wow.
before he
That's
passed
huge.
away.
That's
And
really
so
huge.
maybe that's why he stuck around. I don't know. I don't know that he even knew that, but
It's a good reason.
I think it just depends on where you are in your life. Like, this is a
It's
question
true.
that I could answer right now, but if I found myself in that situation, I might have a different answer.
Well, there's not only that, but what if it's right now versus when you're 78 years old? Let me ask you
Right.
this one. This is very real world, and most of us will find us in a similar situation. What if you have power of attorney, which is an ungodly amount of responsibility,
Hmm.
and I think you're stuck with guilt no matter what you do as soon as you are saddled with that responsibility. And you have to make a decision, be the primary person to make a decision between having someone have, say, stents put in their heart while they're nonetheless battling another fatal disease. And maybe it's a
Hmm.
painful cancer. But they could get another 2 years, maybe 3 years with these stents, yet they're living with a painful disease and say they're 78, 80 years old.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a tough decision.
Well, I mean, I mean, a lot of that depends on the person and who they are. But I mean, are you saying this person is incapacitated to the point where they can't make the decision,
The
and the person
decision
with the power of
making,
attorney has to make that decision?
the person with power of attorney is vested with most of the cards.
Yeah.
Circumstances are, and I'm telling you, most of us will find ourselves in this similar circumstance in one way or another. You can trade out a disease or a person, an age, maybe, but you're going to end up being in a situation where somebody is nearing the end of life in old age, and you are going to have to make a decision whether you prolong that with medical procedures that we didn't have 50 years ago.
Right. Right.
This
I
is
mean,
back to what
this
I
is
mean about playing
yeah.
God. It's a very serious issue for us because there's, as I said, there's guilt involved no matter what you decide.
And I think that, I mean, a lot of this has a lot to do with, your conversations with whoever this is, like, ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, yeah.
Like you have this conversation with Lisa,
Mm-hmm.
and she says,
Mm-hmm.
"I know you.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I know you would want." And of course, you've had conversations about that. So that's going to dictate most of how the person with the power of attorney is going to act, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
how we acted with Keith. It was, he couldn't communicate with us, but we already knew what his will
Mm-hmm.
was, and what a tough chore that was. I mean, that was in the guilt, like you talk about. I mean, we're taking him there. I'll never forget when the day that it was supposed to happen, I had to go over to his house, and he was in his bed, and he was 100% paralyzed, could not communicate with us, had been in a coma for like 2 weeks. And I, I, I thought one more time, I wanted him to be healed, right? Of course, I'd been praying for his healing this whole time. So we were all there, and I laid my hand one more time. Let's just pray for him to be healed. And I prayed. This amazing prayer came out of me. And when I opened my eyes, he opened his eyes. And I said, I mean, oh my God, Barry, I was so elated. And I just yelled out, "Keith!" But it was a coincidence. He wasn't, I don't know why his eyes opened up.
Uh,
He wasn't registering anything.
mm,
And
mm.
then I realized that we were going to have to go through with this, and I had to leave the room. I
Oh,
went outside and I just fell on the ground and just started to cry, and I started to pray. I felt like I heard from God right then, saying, "No, you need to get up off the ground, and this is your task to do here,
mhm.
and you need to go back into that room and have pull yourself together first because everybody's watching you, the whole family's watching you, and you
Sure.
you need to help them
You're a
through this.
pillar. You're a pillar in
Yeah, and
that
you need to help
family.
them through this, and you need to
Hmm.
be calm, and you need to have a quiet knowing about you that he's about to be in the best place he could ever be. And I did that, and I'll never forget what I saw at his bedside. I saw him when we took him off the ventilator, Barry. He opened his eyes again, and he got a big smile on his face. He's 100% paralyzed. You can't smile when you're paralyzed. And then he just faded away. It was
Hmm.
one of the most beautiful, comforting things I'd ever seen because I felt like I saw his soul leave his body and go right to heaven with the
I've
angels.
heard similar stories. I've had this conversation day before yesterday with my friend Dr. Jeff. I bring him up every now and then. And we have talked about that. I told the story about how all the things I've been going through in family with death and illnesses. And I asked him, how do you handle this over your long career? You've seen so much. He's a pediatrician, pulmonary pediatrician. He's seen a lot of death his entire career. And he said, you know, I watched a lot of people just push it down, and vices of some kind will get them because or the stress itself. It's not a good way to go. And he said, I've seen other people do what we were told to do in medical school, and that is keep an emotional distance. Don't get attached. He goes, that's totally the wrong way. You need to be compassionate and you need to let it just go through you. I
That's
think about that
great
all the
advice.
time. Well, it's complex.
You've told me that before.
Mhm,
That I knew that resonated with me once
mhm.
again. But I think
And
you told me that when well, I don't know.
it was on the show. I
It's
remember, and it
very
was
helpful.
probably a year ago.
Let it go through you.
And I think a lot about what does it mean? What does it mean? And I think it means that there's an acceptance to this merry-go-round that we're on. And people get on and off all the time, every day. And it's part of the process. And there's also, I have a firm belief that there's more, we're caterpillars and we just don't know what it's like to be a butterfly. So we're afraid of it.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
great analogy. I think that's a
yeah,
very accurate
I
analogy
do
because
too. I do too. I think it's accurate.
it's not a death, it's a metamorphosis of
Hmm.
sorts into
Hmm.
something way better. I mean,
Hmm.
think about the difference between a caterpillar and a butterfly, and like you're flying
It'd be a lot
around
more
and
fun being a
yeah,
butterfly.
yeah. Plus,
You
I
look
mean,
cool.
you're like a nasty
Beautiful.
caterpillar, and now you're a beautiful butterfly. You're just
Yeah.
like scurving around on the ground and everything. It's
Not
a
worried
great
about
one,
getting
man.
stepped on anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, really, one of the things I remember when my dad passed away, something came to my mind, which was, oh, it was my mom that told me this. And she says, if your father had a chance to come back home right now, he wouldn't
I know.
because
I
heaven
know.
is that great. And
Yeah.
then I started thinking, yeah, they don't call it heaven for nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
why would you want to go there if it's a scary place to go to? I think it's
Agreed.
going to be this super rest and rejuvenation and back to the Matrix kind of thing. This is I think I see good things on the death side of things, but we've been so trained to think of it as such a scary thing. I mean, that's been our culture teaches us that.
Yeah, Dr. Jeff and I talked about that again the other day about how Western culture is just so ill equipped to accept death, talk about it. Our culture is don't talk about that. We literally say that. I don't want to talk
Right.
about
Well, yeah. Oh. Scott and I, when we were little kids, we started to, I don't know what it was, but one of us started to think about dying. And so we went to my mom and said, hey, tell us what happens when you die. And she goes, I don't know. Um, some people think you just close your eyes and that's the end. And then other people, she said the people in China think that you live many lives. And then people over here think that. And I'm like, the more she talked, the more horrified I was that she didn't know what was going to happen.
Oh,
And that was, I'll never forget that day. That was the day.
has an impact on you.
Yeah, it was like the day that changed my whole life. Like, I'm gonna die. Like,
Wow.
I don't want to die. And
Ah,
mom's not helping me out with this.
right.
Like, I was hoping to get some comfort here. Now
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
terrified. And my brother and I were just terrified for years after that we were gonna
Wow.
die. And my dad didn't help. He'd talk about don't run out into the street because you'll get hit by a car and then we'll run over your head and then you'll die and we'll never see you again.
Oh my God. Oh, well, I always talk about, I come back to, that's why I've been fascinated with the near death experiences. And I just try to draw a line through the commonalities. And there are many, oh my God, many, many, many. And the number one thing is the feeling of complete unconditional love that comes over you as you enter into, you could call it heaven. I call it heaven. And I like that. I like that idea. To be stripped of our earthly anxieties, ego, and all things associated with that.
Yeah, the flesh, as it's referred to in the Bible, has these things that we hold on to, like
Uh-huh.
fear and
Mm-hmm.
selfishness and
Mm-hmm.
all of these kind of things. I understand that we let go of that when we
Mm-hmm.
leave our body, when we
Mm-hmm.
escape this tent, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's these near-death experiences that we hear, where people come back to life and they say that they never felt better.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Like
They
they
didn't want to come
never
back.
felt better,
They
right?
were told to
Like I
come
said about
back.
my
It wasn't
dad,
their
right?
time yet, and they didn't want to.
Right. They were bummed out. Like,
Yeah,
can you
for sure.
imagine? Like, you finally make it to the other side and you're like, oh my God, I feel great. This is when you start getting pulled back into your painful body.
Well, you're like,
No.
you're obsessed with this video game, and you finally made it to the level nobody ever made it to, and all these bells and whistles come off, and then it tells you, no, you did something wrong. You got to start the beginning.
Right,
It'd be
right.
like that.
Or it's like having a dream where it's just like, this is the best dream ever. And then you start waking up and you're like, no.
Ah,
And
right. Yeah.
I've heard of people in Christian circles that, somebody died and then somebody went and laid hands on them. They came back to life and they were mad
Oh, yeah.
because they'd
Wow.
seen the other side. And then
Yeah.
suddenly they're back in their painful body. And so it's just kind of crazy to think about. Again, we think about it in such horrible ways in our culture. Last week we talked about little Nora passing
Yeah,
away.
right.
Uh, you know, um, but I can't help but think about this big ticker tape party that's probably still going on in heaven
Mm-hmm.
for that
Mm-hmm.
little hero of a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of. I mean, if you start to change your way of thinking about this, it actually help. It's very helpful.
That is very helpful because the to get back to the premise of this, it's when are we playing God? How much medical intervention do you want to let happen? When it's on you, the other person is not able to make that decision on their own. That, I mean, I really want to get back to that because
It's a tough place to be.
it is, and I just wonder, with our obsession with the latest medical technology, to live in pain. Oh, here's the thing. All animals, insects, whatever, every living being has one. If you don't even have another thought going through your head, like an ant or whatever, they have a couple things that they know. But there's one, the first one that you're programmed with is to preserve your life. Every living thing does. And so, at what point can we, as thinking, cognitively able creatures, can we say, that's just my instinct overtaking really what's rational? Like, why would I want to prolong this life if I believe I'm going to go on to something so much better?
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And I don't personally, I don't want to live like Keith trapped in a body that doesn't function. What You're right, Barry. Why would I want to linger like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And but this is the thing is if you have that power of attorney, it's not about you, it's about the other person and what
Right.
their wishes are. And
Right.
maybe they don't wish that. Maybe they wish to be prolonged in any way, and you're going to have to go along with that. That would be
Yeah.
hard, especially if you believed differently.
Well, you also have to ask them how much their life insurance policy is worth. I'm just kidding.
Hmm.
That was a really bad
I
joke.
was like, what?
No, I purposely
Did
said
you
it
just
dry
say
with a
that?
straight face to see.
I was like, let me try to figure out what he means there.
I like did that to you on purpose. I'm sorry. I need to
No,
apologize.
I like that. That was fun.
With
I put
that,
that in my computer and there's like a wrench in there.
well, maybe we should go
Uh,
on to current events with that because
all right.
I was looking for something that could make Lisa and I feel better. I didn't find it.
No. I mean, I guess you're saying feel better. Are we talking about Lisa's mom or are we talking about you two? Or I know these are the things we have to think
The
about
whole
at this
family's
age.
tied up in this. We all,
Yeah.
everybody has a say in this. She's got two other brothers. I think of myself as just counsel. I
Mhm.
am asked, but it's not my,
No.
but I'm part of it. And so we all, and when something is said by one person and another person disagrees, imagine the emotions that are being tugged at there. It's really a hard
That
conversation.
is hard. There's so many hard things that happen, especially as we get older, that I never really thought about
Exactly. There's a
growing
lot of
up.
them we're faced with all of a sudden that I had not thought about, like these.
It kind of goes back to this whole thing that everybody in life, really, no matter where you go, people are dealing with something.
Yeah.
Everybody's dealing with something, right? I mean, but you look at these people that you come in contact with and you think, oh, well, I bet they're having an easy time.
Mhm.
But we somehow are resilient and we can deal with these hard things and we just take it day by day or step by step and we get through these things. I think that's kind of the secret for any kind of thing we're dealing in life, especially these tough things, is maybe not focus on the end game so much. Just think about the very next step and get through that.
Yeah. What you know what? And every time in business or whatever, we get overwhelmed with life. That's what you
Boy, isn't
do.
that the truth?
You just
Yes.
look for the tiniest next step and just take that.
Right. Just take one tiny
Tiny.
step and you're gonna get there. It's like the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one
There
step.
you
And
go.
the fact is when we start dealing with our thoughts on the one step at a time, we're so freed up inside of our head to be able to deal with that step rather than dealing with that step and every other step at the same time.
For sure.
Um, Anyhow, the brain is an amazing thing when it comes to that. And as you're taking a step forward, you start feeling like you're making progress, and the anxiety of the situation starts to fade.
Mm.
Um, Even if it's the smallest little thing, your brain is rewarded by the fact that you moved forward just a tiny bit,
I think
even.
that's really very astute. And because you also get a little bit of positive reinforcement. Look, I did
There it
conquer
is.
that. Yeah.
Right. I've had
That
these
little tiny
daunting
thing.
things that I've had to deal with at work, and sometimes they seem overwhelming.
Yes.
And so you just make yourself sit down and say, you know what? I'm just going to do this one thing. And every time you get like
Yeah.
you could check the box, that one little thing, and you check the box. There's something about checking the box.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You made progress.
That's
And
very
like you
true.
said, there's a dopamine thing that
Hmm.
happens in your brain, I think,
Yes,
when
that's
you
true.
check that box, and it gives
Mhm.
you motivation to check the next box.
Very true. Very true. I want to put something in your head for like hopefully next week or and the listeners as well. I having a lot of thoughts. I've been wanting to talk about demons
Oh,
in the
nice.
future, not now. But like I
That's
said, I wanted to
that's
put that
great.
in your head, and I mean from a few different points of view.
Yeah.
Because addictions are said have been traditionally said, oh, you're battling your demons. And
Oh yeah,
we've come
yeah,
to say that almost as a figure of speech, but boy,
yeah.
oh boy, can I see I could easily be convinced of the reality of that.
Huh. Yeah, I could see
Mhm.
that too. Well, I mean, I do believe in the reality of that. I'm actually reading this book right now called Return of the Gods by Jonathan Cahn.
Don't say too much. We're going to save
And no,
this.
it's about this whole thing though. The return
Good.
of the gods is actually they're demons, and it has to do with idol worship. It's very very interesting. So yeah, I'm ready for that
Yeah,
conversation.
I think it even helps us, even if it's not true, that it helps us to personify. But I got a good story I'm going to hold on to about a priest who
Oh
went
boy.
and got his own demons exorcised. And he told, explained the whole thing about how we all have at least like 13 demons hanging on to us. The one at the top is the last to let go. And the
Huh.
ones that are towards the bottom are the easiest to get rid of.
Well,
It's a
I
little creepy.
I mean, the Bible's pretty clear about the fact that we're dealing with powers and principalities and high places here in this life. And so, yeah, we're dealing with that. There's angels, there's demons, there is a God, and we're a lot of. I always say it this way that everything that's happening in the world is really painted on a canvas of the spiritual world, good versus evil. And so, if you really think about that and you look at what's happening in the world, it's not hard to believe.
It's also it's easy. It's easier to personify it, even if you're not a believer. But take a stab at that, and just if you want to personify your addiction, Dr. Livingston, who I did two different podcasts with, one of my favorite guests ever. He talks about the compulsive eating, and he personified his addiction as a pig, and he'd say, "Not today, pig. You do not get to control me." And by personifying it in this way, it makes it easier to deal with.
Huh,
I think the
interesting.
same can be said. Just go full demon with it. All right,
Yeah.
let's go on to current events. We got a lot. They're in it. They're tied together. Remember last week we don't have the shotgun effect today. All
Yeah.
right, where we have 30 tiny ones. That was a wild one last week. A wild ride. This one, there's a lot that ties together. There's the war that's seemingly being started going on in Yemen with the Houthi attacks
With
and
the
the
Houthis.
commotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's implications with Israel, Netanyahu, and Iran, eventually Iran. I want to talk about Thomas Massie, what he's got to say about all of this. And that leads us directly into these are all tied with the war in Israel. And I thought Trump was supposed to be the anti war guy, but he took an awful lot of campaign funding to keep the war in Israel alive. And I
Hmm.
hate that. I hate the sound of it. Want to talk about the dismantling yesterday. I'm not sure how this turned out, but yesterday was supposed to be the dismantling of the Department of Education.
Yeah. He signed
And
an executive order.
is that right? It did happen. I've
Yeah.
somehow thought it might not happen.
No, it
And
happened.
then, dude, I think this is one you're going to like a whole lot. Talking about the latest in the shocking JFK file revelations.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything on that yet.
I
So
looked
you're
up stuff. I have a lot of bulleted points on it.
interesting. I've
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
seen a bunch of fake stuff too, that came out way before they actually released anything. So I felt like this is kind of a dangerous landmine here.
Interesting. Then just this morning, I made notes and I copied a link to revealed Chief Justice John Roberts caught in secretive invite only club of elite judges and lawyers.
Interesting.
I don't know how credible the source is. That's what I was trying to discern, and I went through a lot of that with chat, but that was this morning, so it was only a couple hours ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of odd rumors about our Chief Justice, and it's hard to tell what's real and what's not.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, like by the minute,
Yeah.
everything is. Where would you want to start? We
I
got
got a couple of things as well here too.
uh,
This war
finally,
that's
I
happening
didn't
in
ask, and you do. Usually, I
yeah,
ask, and you're
this
like, "Nah,
war
let's
that's
just get
happening in
started."
Syria is really crazy. I don't know if you've seen over
No,
there.
no,
Also, this big deal that's happening with Tesla and anything Elon
yes,
Musk, where
yes,
terrorist activity, domestic terrorist
yes. Yeah, I
activity is
agree with
happening.
that. Yeah.
And just a update on these legal cases that are going on against the Trump administration regarding some of the moves that he's made with the deportation of
That's what
Trende
that
Agua.
judge. That's what
Yes,
that
with
judge,
the
that last one,
judge.
has
Yes,
to
yes.
do with.
James Boasberg is his name. He's a U.S. judge that put the kibosh on these deportation. He would, man. Why don't we start? We could start there actually, if you want
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
Um,
Okay, why not? Yeah.
yeah, this judge has put the kibosh on these violent gang members that have been here in the United States. Tren de Agua, they're from Venezuela, and we've seen these people in various cities. And one of them being Aurora, Colorado, where they took over several apartment buildings and they terrorized the people that were living there for months on end. And so finally, this is a terrible gang that is notorious in Venezuela. And it looked like the Venezuelan government sent them to the United States. I'm pretty sure that they did.
Hmm.
There was this big deal last over the last couple of weeks where we're sending these people back to Venezuela. The Venezuelan government said they weren't going to take them back, and then Trump talked to them, and then they were like, "Oh, not only will we take them back, we'll send our version of Air Force One over to pick them up." So who knows what happened in that negotiation? But that's what happened. So these criminals were flown back over the weekend. There was about 300 of them flown back to Venezuela. And Barry, I don't know if you got to see any of these pictures of them
I s-
arriving. And yeah, so these people are being shipped down to Venezuela, and immediately the Venezuelan government is there to meet them with these crazy vans and everything. They drag these prisoners off the train, off the plane, these Tren de Agua punks, and they're all handcuffed and everything. They keep them all neat, like bent down and everything. They drag them out of there and they make them kneel down on the floor, a bunch of them, and they're all handcuffed and everything. They start shaving their beards off and their hair off and
wow.
everything. And I mean, they got this whole process down. They got them all in these white shirts and everything, and they put them into this place. It's like bird cages. There's just hundreds and hundreds of these guys in
Sounds like
there.
El Salvador. They
It's
did the
just,
same
it's
thing there.
and they're all shaved. They're all like shaved heads and everything like that. They get like one meal a day. This is the most
Quite a deterrent.
militant type of a prison, and it's specifically for these violent gang members that run roughshod over Venezuela. Apparently, the president of Venezuela had these places constructed just for these types of criminals. And
Mm.
so the bottom line is this is that the Venezuelan government knows full well how violent and dangerous these people are. And it was evidenced by how they were treated when they got flown back. While that was happening, Barry, this judge put out an injunction that would stop all of that from happening. He even said that these planes that were in the air should be routed backwards. The judge is James Boasberg,
Hmm.
and this is an Obama appointee.
I got to
And
clarify that. He was appointed by because that Bond, not Bondi, who's the press secretary, she got kind of I would call it a little bitch slapped on that one because he was appointed by George Bush and then pushed up a rank by Obama, and so that's been a misnomer.
let's
And I
see here.
want
I
to
got it
clarify
right here.
that.
He's a graduate of Yale, Oxford University, and Yale Law. Okay. Boasberg clerked for the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals before later joining the Justice Department as a federal prosecutor. Washington, D.C. Here's something interesting. After returning full time to the bench, Boasberg oversaw the sentencing of former FBI attorney Kevin Kleinsmith. And this was the guy that pleaded guilty to doctoring a 2017 email asking to extend surveillance permissions for its wiretap of former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. So Boasberg declined to sentence this guy. He gave him 12 months probation instead of prison time. This guy, he is so he said the sentencing decision that he believed Kleinsmith's role at the center of the years-long media hurricane had provided sufficient punishment. So he went easy on this guy for really trying to overturn the government with the whole
Oh,
FISA thing. And so this guy's got a
there's deeper allegations. I got it right
he's
here.
got a long history here, and also the Ninth District Court is notorious for being very left of center. Go ahead.
Okay. Now I'll say that I ran this through chat trying to find corroboration or a fact checking, actually. And it said, yeah, this stuff is all pointing in a bad direction, but more evidence is needed, basically, is what it said. So we
Yeah.
got this Gateway Pundit. Do you know of this
Yeah.
Gateway Pundit? It says revealed. Chief Justice John Roberts caught secretive invite only club of elite judges and lawyers that includes James Boasberg, Beryl Howell, Amit Mata, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. I've heard her
Oh,
name.
what do you know?
Oh, right. The secretive club America Inns of Court. This is what it's called. Their club is called America Inns, INNS. America Inns of Court also included the radical American hating judges, James Buzz, all those judges I just mentioned, all hard left judges and Trump haters. The Supreme Court is holding secretive meetings with far left district judges who are running a judicial coup on the President of the United States. What I hate about this publication is they use a lot of exclamation points and hyperbole words. So that always makes me very skeptical. But I'll say again, chat didn't disprove it. And it didn't, it just said we need more hard evidence, but it's pointing in a bad direction.
Well, here's the thing is, oh, and I do see here, at least this article is saying that he was appointed to the bench nearly 15 years ago by Barack Obama. So I don't know what the story is
I
on
think that's
that.
wrong. I'll bet you if you did more hard digging, he was appointed by Bush, but bumped up by Obama.
Well, that's interesting. In any event, he's got a history with the FISA court and also with the surveillance of President Trump. He's definitely a guy. First off, let's just talk about this for a second. What would be the problem with deporting Tren de Agua people? Constitutionally, the president and the executive office are responsible for protecting our borders. That is their job in the Constitution, not the federal court's job. It is the executive office that's in charge of that. So here he's invoking, what is it, the 1798 deportation law. And this had to do with the fact that after the Revolutionary War, the British still wanted those colonies back. And the funny thing is the first time that it was enacted was during the War of 1812, which was the war against Britain again, who was trying to take those colonies back. And so we had to get rid of those British subverters that were here in the country that were trying to destroy the country. There's a precedent here. The president has the ability to get threat to the country out of the country, and the court doesn't have a role here whatsoever. And so I think it's going to be interesting. I think this is just a delay tactic that's happening, and it's not just happening with this case. It's happening with several other items as well. For instance, the Doge thing that's going on right now, and this one I think actually has some merit. But there's another one that's in the news right now where a judge has stopped the USAID demise, saying that it's unconstitutional for Elon Musk to be making the decisions regarding Doge. They're saying that the Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution says that the president can appoint these people to offices, but it has to be done through consent of Congress and the Senate, actually. And so they have said that Elon Musk is not in charge of Doge, that this other woman is, that they that no one had ever heard of. I think her name is Allison Gleason. No one ever heard of her, but suddenly she's the one that's in charge of Doge, and it's not really Elon Musk. And I think that the Trump administration might be seeing trouble on this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
very, very interesting. But what's happening right now, Barry, is that we're seeing that pretty much everything that Trump is doing right now is being held up by these different judges, federal judges. All of them were appointed by Obama so far.
Mm.
And we saw this one where we're debating whether it was Obama or Bush, but what's the difference between Obama and Bush, really?
No, I think you got a good point there. I know that I've heard a lot recently, and I've heard before. I think maybe most of us have. Is that the great thing about America is that it can't be just you can't kick the legs out from under the table. That everything has to go through so many channels very purposefully, so that one president can't come in here and change things drastically overnight. In other, it has to go through acts of Congress, and which is great so that we don't get seized by radicals. But on the other hand, it does hamper what to your point right now, it's hampering what most of America wants in reclaiming some things that Trump has promised and is trying to do. But we see the holdups. I have felt this in many different ways already. I have kind of said that we've been promised over and almost on a daily basis all this sizzle, but what we're getting is a lot of fizzle. I haven't seen one prosecution yet from a lot of guilty people in
Yeah.
a lot of areas.
I mean, it's crazy how much the court is jumping into this too and jumping in the way. I would say this that I've heard CNN talking about a constitutional crisis, and that's just with Trump being
CNN,
elected.
yeah.
I don't believe that that's the constitutional crisis, but I do see where here's one right here. Federal judge blocks EPA from ending Biden era gold bars fraud worth $20 billion. Here's another one that says judge halts Trump order removing trans individuals from military. Here's another judge we just talked about that stopped the deportation of Tren de Agua over to Venezuela. So these very activist judges are getting in the way of the mandate that the American people voted by majority for. And as you know, I study the Constitution. These are all under the jurisdiction of the executive branch. And also, you've got a real constitutional problem when you try to say that Trump doesn't have any oversight of these bureaucracies, because when the Constitution was written, there were no bureaucracies. And so,
Right.
therefore, there's an unconstitutional bureaucracy that's happening. So if you're a judge and you say you're unconstitutionally getting rid of this bureaucracy, well, it's not constitutional to have the bureaucracy in the first place. So how can you say that it's unconstitutional to get rid of it? It's the craziest thing. And I would say that that's our constitutional crisis, Barry.
Well, I guess we'll end up seeing where it goes. All this stuff is really pretty interrelated. So let me
It is. It really is.
let's talk about the Israeli war for a moment, because it's kind of in the center of a lot of things here.
It is.
And I wanted to bring up that because I had to go back, I'm like, what is Trump's hard on with Israel here? And well, a lot of his funding, his campaign funding, came from Miriam Adelson, widow of Sheldon Adelson. She donated 90 million freaking dollars to a Trump super PAC in 24. Her contributions were linked to seeking support for Israel's annexation of the West Bank. The Republican Jewish Coalition, an AIPAC ally, has spent over 14 million supporting Trump since 2020. I got a list of sources there. And Trump just gave Israel another $4 billion. And let's see, the U.S. has already approved nearly $12 billion in military assistance to Israel since Trump returned to office. And I just wrote my own comment here. How has a country that is $36 trillion in the red funding the oil-rich Middle Eastern war? This all stinks to me. This really stinks. And I'll always start on, and I'll admit this, first of all these world affairs are really over my head for the most part. I haven't spent my life researching the leaders of these different countries and the intermingled relationships between them. So my first start is I'm always anti-war. I don't like killing people. I don't care if they're Americans or not. They're human beings, and they're not the reason why we are fighting. They just got drafted against their will to put their lives on the line. I don't like any of that. But then if you want to come at me and say, but you don't understand, if we don't back this person, they're key to all of our relationships with Iran, Iraq, and blah, blah, blah. You could totally snow me with all of that. And there's a lot of validity to any of that that's over my head. So I'll put that out there.
Right.
But I don't, if you could explain to me how we've given Israel another $12 billion in the last couple of months, I would love to hear the rationale behind that.
Yeah, I don't have a rationale for that.
That's called campaign funding. We got to get the money out of politics eventually.
And that is how it works, right? Is that these people can give all of this money and
their own favors.
That's right. And here's the other thing too, though, is that on the campaign trail, Trump made it very clear about his support for Israel, and people voted for him. So that you have that as well. But it does seem to me like the Israeli government has this well in hand and can handle this militarily. Why do they need our help with this?
Why do they need our money?
I don't actually understand it. And I'm with you. I don't trust. That's my number one thing that I've learned over the last decade or so is when you read these stories, not to trust and to maybe trust but verify. That's actually going too far. I think distrust until you verify, really. I don't trust governments, even the Israeli government. I don't trust our own government. Why should I trust their government, right? It seems, when you take a look at this, the Israeli government, the IDF, just started operations again after the ceasefire because Hamas won't return the prisoners or hostages that they've had for a year and a half now. And so you got both sides. You got Hamas and you've got Israel that are, I guess you could say it's a stalemate, but when you take a look at Hamas, Israel is just destroying everything there, and they're hanging on to these hostages. Why would you continue to do that? Why not just give it up? I don't really. I think it's terrible. I don't think there's an answer to this either.
There's one person that had argued against Trump's latest government funding bill. Non-surprisingly, it's Thomas Massie. And he claims that the military-industrial complex, the monster that we created or allowed to be created, needs and demands $50 billion annually beyond what is necessary for national defense.
That makes sense.
Yes, it does. And we're already $12 billion on the way there. I have a video of Massie that I want to share. And
I like Thomas Massie.
I love that guy because he's the only one that he has the balls to stand up when nobody else will. He's the only
He
one that
speaks
opposes
truth
this.
to power, right?
And during COVID, he drove from Kentucky to DC to be the one person to oppose the emergency funding. Trump hates him. And let me back up before I share this one because I wanted to make sure that come on, computer, that I do talk about what Trump's tough talk about Massie. Let's see. Massie opposed the government-backed government funding bill, leading Trump to criticize him publicly again. He also did back in the COVID. I think we're going to hear about that in a second.
Yeah.
Trump expressed his frustration on social media, stating that Massie, quotes, should be primaried and pledged to lead the charge against him. And so I'm going to go ahead and share this now. And exactly what he said.
Complex like you did on.
The other committee that I serve on is the Transportation Committee. And I can tell you with the $40 billion that we spent last night added to the $14 billion we've already spent, that's $54 billion. That's equal to the entire amount that the federal government spends on roads and bridges every year. So the next time you hit a pothole and you have to replace your tire or your rim or you're sitting in traffic, just remember that Congress could have doubled spending on our own infrastructure instead of sending that money to Ukraine. Well, I think it's wrong to use Ukraine as a grinding stone against the Russian military because even though American blood isn't being spilled there, blood is being spilled. We should look for an end to this conflict. But I'm worried that the military-industrial complex doesn't want an end. You know, $54 billion, that's suspiciously close to the annual amount we were spending in Afghanistan every year. And so as soon as we stop spending $50 billion in Afghanistan, now we're spending $50 billion in Ukraine. If only the military-industrial complex made baby formula, you know, we'd be okay. We'd have enough to fill up our swimming pools with that kind of money.
Really disingenuous.
I love that last line about
the
baby formula thing was good. I like that. Boy, that stuff is expensive too.
Well, Bob,
that almost broke me, man. When my kids were little, geez. Okay, go ahead.
I don't hear the best things about that with all the new stuff that we know about preservatives and the poisons they put in our food.
No. Some people can't breastfeed though, so what can you do?
Right, but breastfeeding would be apparently the best way to go. The thing is, back to my point about the government intentionally they're trying to turn around the Titanic so things don't happen too quickly and too spontaneously, possibly causing mistakes. If Thomas Massie ran for president, I think he would get a lot of support. If he won the presidency, the one guy that seems pure snow out there and in his commitments, what do you think he could get done? I don't think he could get any more done than what's being done now.
Yeah, I think it's tough to say, what a guy like that could get done. But isn't it refreshing to hear him speak? And,
I'm surprised he's not censored all over the place.
Yeah, right. I mean,
you're not going to catch it on mainstream media, but we caught it.
He's very smart. Yeah, he's a very smart guy, and he can figure stuff out. I mean, look at how he figured out the military-industrial complex, and I mean, this is what it is. Our whole government's in on this, Barry, as we know.
It's a money laundering scheme.
It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. Remember when the war was just about to start, and Joe Biden was having a State of the Union. And I'll never forget all of those people on both sides of the aisle. They were all jovial and all talking to each other. Usually they stay separate, but they were all talking to each other. And they all had the Ukraine pin on their lapels. And I remember thinking how weird that was, that here's a State of the Union and I'm seeing more Ukraine flags than anything else. And something seemed very, very suspicious to me at that time. And here it is. It's the military-industrial complex. When we send, and both sides have admitted this, when we send money over there, well, here's $1 billion. How many billions have we sent over there? 200, something crazy like that?
Unreal.
When we send $1 billion over there, it comes right back to the United States again. Because they have to use that money to buy weapons and military equipment from our military industrial
Very high
complex.
dollar costs.
Oh yeah,
And then a lot
absolutely.
of times I'm hearing that these are then being sold on the black market by these countries that
That's
we
exactly
donated this
right.
stuff to.
There's a huge problem there because we're going to be dealing with that
It's
for
ugly.
decades into the future. Like, why do all the nations have those stingers? Or it's because of the same reason, because
Yeah.
we overstocked the world and now they got sold into the black market. And now everyone has one. Um,
How do you straighten out the military industrial complex? We
well, wait, let
need
me take
a
this a
tough
step further.
defense.
Well, there's one other thing about that, how the money comes back. It comes back to our banks. And because the military, they'll put it into the bank, right? So this is the next part that happens. When that $1 billion comes back and goes into the bank, there's something called fractional reserve lending that happens. So the bank can take that money and lend the $1 billion out. But what they do is they create what's called checkbook money, and they can create up to another $1 billion of fake money and loan that out as well. So you see what happens is that it's this huge money creation machine, but it's not actually
banking.
creating money, it's creating currency. And that's where the big problem is, Barry, because when you create currency, it actually goes into what our actual money is, and that's how inflation happens. So every time we're sending money over there, it's causing more and more inflation to happen here. That's why eggs were like $8 for 12 eggs and all this kind of stuff. So it's like it's slowly strangling us is what's happening here. And Thomas Massie is drawing that out. Well, nobody in Washington wants Thomas Massie talking about this because they're all making a fortune off of this. And that's why I think if he were to get elected popularly by the people, he would be destroyed in Washington if you keep the swamp the way it is. And is Trump playing in the swamp too? Is he a swamp guy too?
Well, he has to play with them.
You have to, right?
He's a deal maker. There's somebody on the other side of that deal.
This is where I had a friend of mine call me and he was wanting to talk about Doge. And he's like, you take a look at Elon Musk and is it fair? Is this right? And while I am a big fan of reducing the government because they're out of control,
yes,
I can see where people are coming from and their concern on this whole thing. And just what you said is that you give any branch of office too much power and corruption's going to happen. And so, and I keep hearing on the left where they say, well, they should be using a scalpel, but instead they're using a chainsaw. And it's like, okay, I don't know if they need to use a scalpel because look at what you guys have done. But you and I have talked about this. You cut too much out, and people are going to get hurt. Maybe people will die.
Yeah.
And so this isn't a cavalier thing. We do have to be careful with this.
No, I totally agree with that. That's why I've been very vocal about it. Hated Musk doing the rock star thing with his sunglasses and chainsaw. I hated that. They're seriously families, many families who are being very adversely affected by all these cuts. I am all for the cuts. And I had it explained to me, man, it's probably Patrick Bet David, but that when you got somebody that's like a really great, successful businessman, that venture capitalists that go in and take failing businesses and correct them and all, the first thing they do is go in and slash 75%. And what that does is obviously because the Pareto principle, 20% of the people do 80% of the work anyway. So slash the 80%, but it exposes the cracks. It exposes where the deficiencies are in a company. So then you patch that up. It's a messy, painful process. So I just think that the person heading that messy, painful process for American families, I want to put it that way, should do so very professionally and with compassion, not like an asshole.
Yeah, I agree with you on this. Like we don't need to make a show of it or put it in people's face like that. I just don't think that that's appropriate at this
Not at
time.
all. Not at all.
Hey, I wanted to move on to the subject of the education, the Department of
Oh,
Education. We
okay.
talked about that real
Yeah.
quick. President
I'm happy
Trump,
about this one.
yeah, he signed a major executive order on Thursday to begin eliminating the Department of Education once and for all. The signing came as the president gave remarks last night about this historic event, and so this thing is officially signed, and it's to be dismantled. Let's see, here's something. Department of Education, $3 trillion spent since 1979. Virtually nothing to show for it. I've got a graphic here that I think is pretty interesting.
$3 trillion and nothing to show for it.
Check
Oh
this
my
out, Barry.
God.
This is 1970, and we're looking at read. These are math scores, science scores,
Oh,
and
God.
reading scores from 1970 to 2010. No advance
I'm
whatsoever
surprised
on
they're not
any
going
of these.
down. They
But
should be going down.
look at this total
Oh,
cost
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
skyrocketing,
our government
and
for you.
the amount of employees
Yeah.
also
Oh, yeah.
skyrocketing. In 1970, the cost of education K through 12 was $57,000, and the latest statistics we have are from 2010, where it went up to 164,000, and this comes from the Department of Education itself. So, what's the problem with getting rid of this? What did we say? How much money did we say we spent?
I think you said 3 trillion was wasted. It could have been two.
$3 trillion spent since 1979. 1979 is when the Department of Education was birthed, and so we spent $3 trillion, and we got absolutely bupkis for it.
Well, what we got was infiltrated with ideology.
Well, that's exactly right.
Starting at that point. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was we paid, once again, we paid terrorists to infiltrate our country and created disservice to the American people.
Well, let's think about something
I want to
here.
ask you something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hang on to that. So the power is to be given back to the states for education,
Yes.
which I think is tremendous. What I worry about is the inequality. So you got Arkansas, West Virginia. How is their educational system going to keep up with the rest of America? Because I think it's very important that in this case, there is a sense of equity. I hate to use that term, but do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. I think that one of the problems with having the federal government doing all of this work is that it takes the local parental association out of it. Like we saw it over the last couple of years where parents were trying to actually influence the education of their children, and the federal government came after them. The Department of
Acted like they
Education
had
called
no
them
right.
domestic terrorists.
Yeah.
And
I
so
remember
that was the function of having a Department of Education lording itself over all of these areas. And what did it make them do? It caused them to put in critical race theory and all of these other destructive things that are warping the minds of our children. So I get what you're saying about the inequity. I don't know how you deal with that, but I would have to think that it's got to be better than having propaganda pushed down your kid's throat, so that, I mean, the net result is that they end up hating their parents, they hate authority, they hate America, they hate religion. They're destined to play video games for the rest of their lives and not associate with anybody else, and it's just a really terrible thing. So I think these are bridges we're going to have to cross. But here's the point, Barry, is that we ran it this way all from the time our country was created in 1776 until 1979, and things went pretty well for education. Adding this Department of Education to the federal government did absolutely nothing except for ruin our kids' brains and steal our money.
I can see a very big positive to come out of this. And I'm just thinking about it as we're talking, but it's what the best part of capitalism is the competition that it creates. And so we'll be able to see different systems get experimented with in different states, in different regions.
Yes.
And
And they
some
will
will work
compete with
better
each other.
than
Yes.
others. And some states will go, look what the hell they did. They transformed their entire educational system.
What a
We need
great
to
point.
take that model.
That is a great point that you're making. And I believe that's how it was working before this all happened. Remember, this all happened under the Carter administration. And one thing I'm remembering, Barry, is a change that happened in school right around that time. And I don't. So this change happens right around 1979. Here's my perspective is that gym class was my favorite class at the
Gym
time. I
class.
loved gym, and we had like all these really cool things we were
I
doing.
want to
Like
just say, back then, everybody loved gym for the most part.
yeah, and
You
and
know,
so we had boxing and wrestling.
you did?
And yeah, man, and it was awesome. And then and I love that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was freshman year. I remember was it freshman? Yeah, freshman. Oh no, eighth grade.
Mm.
We were doing boxing in eighth grade. And then we
Wow.
went to
Wish
ninth
we
grade
were.
and it was co-ed gym. And we never did
Oh,
anything like that
oh,
again.
right. Okay.
And so it was over. And so here's the thing. Look at what happened. It was co-ed gym nationwide. So
Mm.
this was now the thing that the Department of Education must have put on us because before it was all statewide stuff. They couldn't do anything nationwide. So one of the first things they did was they watered down your masculinity so that you
Yeah,
couldn't do these things that boys need to do.
that's a fact.
And
That's a
so
fact.
now look at what they're doing to boys. Like
Mm.
if you have toxic masculinity, we're going to have to put you in a class.
I think we're
And
coming
so,
back. I think we're reversing that trend. No.
well, God, I hope so,
Yeah.
because what you've done is so unnatural. What they've done is so unnatural. But look what this is the fruit of the Department of Education.
No, it's true. And to your point, what they've done to our young men and women is create a lot of anxiety and self-harm and even up the suicide rate
That's exactly
considerably
right.
because
That's
it's
exactly where
unnatural.
I'm going. Look what they've done to these kids, and look at what they did over the last 5 years. They took all those kids out of school. They
Yeah.
isolated them.
Yeah.
Those big teacher unions were so big on keeping them out of the
They didn't
school
want to go back
system.
to school. They
No,
didn't
they
want to go
didn't,
back
and
to work.
they were getting paid big time.
Yeah.
Look, they're even trying to control homeschooling now. State government. I just saw. I think it was the state of New York. They're trying to no, Illinois. They're trying to actually put the clamps on homeschooling and control the curriculum and control how this whole thing is done. Because a whole bunch of people tried to get out of the public school system over COVID and go into this homeschooling thing because of all the propaganda. Oh, no, they're going to get them there too. It's like they want to own your kids.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
Anyhow,
Uh,
there it is. Department of Education. That's some crazy stuff right there. And
well,
good riddance to them is what I
yeah,
say.
man, for sure. Especially when you showed that chart on all that waste in the talk that we had about, wow, hey, look at this region over here or this state. They just turned around their educational system in just a few years. And that can create some real changes, real innovation. We
Yeah.
can, maybe we should just talk briefly about the war in Yemen once again. The Houthi, spawned by, at least said to be spawned by the Houthi attacks on commercial vessels. But this says my research says it may influence a war with Iran
Yeah.
that, of course, Netanyahu would absolutely love.
Oh, well, here it is. President Trump warned the Islamic Republic of Iran on Wednesday to immediately cut off its support of the Houthis, an Islamic terrorist group in Yemen. Iran must stop sending these supplies immediately. Let the Houthis fight it out themselves. Either way they lose, but this way they lose quickly. Tremendous damage has been inflicted upon the Houthi barbarians, and watch how it will get progressively worse. It's not even a fair fight and never will be. They will they will be completely annihilated, says President Trump on Truth Social.
Mm.
Wow.
It just
These
sounds
Houthi
like
These Houthis are no good.
No,
These
they're not.
Houthis are terrible. And interestingly, and yes, they are a proxy of Iran. They're
Hmm.
in Yemen, and just over the last couple decades, the most horrible atrocities have happened in Yemen. They even crucify people there. I've seen people crucified in Yemen, and I've never actually seen anybody crucified. It is a terrible, terrible sight if you ever see somebody
Sure.
what they do. They have been consistently attacking Saudi Arabia. This is the age-old fight between the Shiites and the Sunnis, and the Houthis being the Shiites from Iranians are Shiites, and you're seeing this war that's been going on. And of course, the United States is an ally of Saudi Arabia, and so we've got an enemy with Iran and any of their proxies going on here. We're seeing the same thing up in Syria as well, with the Sunnis and the Shiites. The Shiite government, or the Shiites, were actually running the government of Syria for the last 50 years, even though they were the minority. And now the Sunnis are running the government and taking revenge over all of the atrocities that happened over the last 50 years. And here we are in the middle of it, Barry.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be yet another unconstitutional war?
Well, it seems to me that all wars that we have right now have been unconstitutional, really, ever since World War II. Did you know that it's Congress that is responsible for declaring war? Well, the president declares war, but then the Congress has to support that through a vote over the next 60 days. However, that hasn't happened since World War II. All of our wars that we've had since then are under the War Powers Act that actually circumvented that whole thing, which really it includes the people and the will of the people. They've circumvented that. So now we've had the Korean War, the Vietnam War,
All disasters.
all of the wars we had in Iran, 1 and 2, and everything that's going on with Ukraine and Israel right now. None of that has been approved by us, we the people. And there it is, the military-industrial complex.
That's where the war should be, on the military-industrial complex.
And who owns that? Who owns when you look at all of those companies like Raytheon, Boeing, and we'll come to Boeing in a second with they stranded those astronauts up in space for a year.
Hey, let's do that for the lighter side. Got nothing else for it. That's a good one.
But if you look at those companies, who owns the majority stock in those companies? It's BlackRock.
Oh, Jesus. Of course.
BlackRock, who owns now both sides of the Panama Canal. BlackRock, our friends. God. BlackRock, Larry Fink. He's the darling of the WEF, the World Economic Forum. BlackRock, our friends.
Oh my God.
They are slowly eating. They own 90% of the companies around the world. They are the world government, as far as I can see. That they are the globalists. And
so you might want to look at that in a more elementary way and say, well, that's the country's largest monopoly. Why are we not dividing it up? I say, very good question. It seems to me that it's a structure that the writers of these laws did not foresee, because they own everything.
Well, and also the writers of our laws are all paid off by those guys too. So they're making money off of everything BlackRock is doing. That's what's giving them their fortunes. That's why the people, the dumbest people, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be mean, but it's like the dumbest people now live in mansions because of this kind of thing. That's really what's going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we have I mean, it, Barry, we just have a huge problem here when it comes to the people that we actually have elected into our government. Here's a good example of that. Remember Cori Bush?
Yeah.
She's so fun. A husband of former Congresswoman Cori Bush charged with fraud for receiving $20,000 in payments meant for small business during COVID. So her husband, during the time she's a Congresswoman, her husband pretends that he's got a business and applies for the for the bailout money during
Yeah.
COVID, and he gets $20,000, and
Oh
now he's
God.
looking at a fraud case here.
Wow. I didn't
He's
hear
in
about
he's
that
in
one.
big trouble. But get this. The development comes following a separate investigation where Bush is accused of paying her husband $150,000 to serve as her bodyguard.
Really?
Yeah,
That's all
remember it
kinds
was
of
Cori
crooked.
Bush that was out there trying to take everybody's gun away, but yet she had an armed entourage around her
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
And
yeah.
also remember that she is a Black Lives Matter activist.
Love Black Lives Matter. I mean, it bought some really needy people a few mansions. So that was very
Look at what's
successful.
happening here, and look at
Yeah.
all of this stuff. Here's this black woman talking about how oppressed black people are and
Mm,
how unfair white people are. Look what
yeah.
they've done.
Yeah.
How embarrassing is this?
You
I
would
mean, as a
think.
black man, this is embarrassing.
Of
Like,
course
this
it
is what I
is.
was talking about. Black lives matter. All lives matter. This is embarrassing. And it makes it seem like all black people are like this.
Yeah, I mean, really, COVID was the pinnacle in this country of stupidity and just a money grabbing scam. So we went for COVID itself was, of course, a pharmaceutical money grabbing scam, not to mention all the politicians involved, the Black Lives Matters fiasco that went right alongside with it. It just seemed like everything imploded at that time. And that gave us this administration that we have struggling right now with all the different promises. But they did get out the JFK files. For better or for worse, I suggest, Merle, that we end current events with this, unless you have something else. It's fine.
Well, I have one last thing,
Yeah,
which is
go
good
ahead.
news, is Supreme Court strikes down New York law allowing non-citizens to vote.
Oh,
Yes.
well,
Remember we
that's
talked
a
about
good
that?
one. That
That's
was such common
yes.
sense.
Well,
So
first
many
off,
things.
finding out that non-citizens can vote in New York City. Remember, Jerry Nadler was trying to defend that whole thing when they came up that how crazy that non-citizens aren't allowed to vote in the
Yeah.
elections, and the guy's like, "Wait, what about New York City, which he represents?"
I
Well,
thought,
well, that's
well,
different.
California was the same, wasn't it?
I believe
I
that
was
well,
sure of that.
California is different. Here's how. There's no voter ID that they
That's what I
require.
was thinking of. Right.
Yeah, so you can just go in and vote. And you're not allowed to pull your ID out. What?
Man, that's so crazy.
I know, right? It's weaponized. It's just like this judge, Boas, whatever his name is,
Mhm.
that's stopping the deportations.
Yeah.
Well, what could that do? That could only destroy our country, right? Like
Right.
what rationale do you? Well, it's unconstitutional because of the act. No, it's there's a precedent because of the. Anyway, don't get me started. But I'm so glad that New York City law has changed. There were over 800,000 non-citizens there that were going to be voting. So now that's done, and it was decisive.
Okay. Uh, that's some good news. That's some really
It
good
is.
news. Okay, let's talk about the JFK revelations to what we have to this point, because it's been a little bit of nobody knows what to make of it. What I kind of get out of it, and I had Chat do some bullet points for me, so we can do
Oh,
that.
cool. Yeah.
But what I kind of got out of it at the end of the day was I think they said there's 80,000 papers there. I'm pretty sure it was 80,000. It
I bet
seems
you're right.
like rather than redacting everything and handing over 10 pages of blacked out stuff, and not, they did the opposite, which is really clever. Throw so much crap in there, nobody could, like, whatever. I heard somebody say this, whatever angle you want to find in there, it's in there. You know,
Oh,
if you want
boy.
to say Japan is responsible for the assassination, you can find that. I'm being a little
That's
hyperbolic, but
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, let me read these. And it's like 5 bullet points. Let's see what you think. CIA knew more about Oswald than admitted. Newly released docs show Oswald was under CIA surveillance long before the assassination, raising questions about how much they knew and why they didn't act. Okay, 2. Rogue CIA group allegedly behind it. A former U.S. Army intelligence officer claimed that a CIA faction orchestrated the assassination to protect secret operations. That reminds me of something someone else said on a podcast. Let me reread this part. A former U.S. Army intelligence officer claimed a CIA faction orchestrated the assassination to protect secret. Somebody said on a podcast that there are factions of the CIA in the CIA.
Yes, there are.
So you got this CIA faction responsible for the JFK assassination. No one else in the CIA has any intelligence of that, any awareness of it, nothing to do with it. So that's interesting. Let's go to the third bullet point. FBI ignored warnings. A memo reveals the FBI was tipped off about Oswald's plan to kill Kennedy, but failed to take action. Okay, two more. KGB cleared Oswald. Soviet intelligence investigated Oswald and determined he wasn't working for them, debunking theories of a Soviet plot. And the last one. JFK distrusted the CIA. We all know this one. Kennedy planned to overhaul or dismantle the CIA, especially after the Bay of Pigs, fueling theories of internal sabotage. Chat says, final takeaway. The files confirm major intelligence failures and cover-ups, but no smoking gun, ... yet.
Mm-hmm.
I have a video. I do have a video by ABC on this. I forgot about. That's not the one. This is it. I better share, right? I forgot I had this, so sorry about that.
Don't forget to share your sound.
Piquing the interest of historians and everyday Americans alike. The man behind the gun that killed President John F. Kennedy in November 1963, Lee Harvey Oswald, who we've known for years, had visited both Cuban and Russian embassies in Mexico City, and who we now know had been monitored by the CIA.
The CIA denied for years knowing anything about Lee Harvey Oswald or following him in any way or opening his mail. Just untrue.
Larry Sabato is the...
I gotta stop and say something right there. This is so much fizzle when we're promised the sizzle. What about the second freaking shooter that's never been mentioned?
Yeah.
We're still talking just about Oswald, and that's it.
Yeah. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Author of The Kennedy Half Century, and says from what he's read so far, the newly released files paint a far clearer picture of tensions between President Kennedy and the CIA.
We know that. We've known that.
This is old news, right? Okay, Allen Dulles and JFK hated each other. Allen Dulles tricked the Kennedy administration into the Bay of Pigs, right? Kennedy was super pissed about that whole thing and learned also because the CIA, before he took office, killed one of his friends down in, I think, Argentina or something like that. He knew that they were just a band of assassins. That's what he knew. It makes sense that it was the CIA at the head of this whole thing. It just does.
It does.
And you take a look at the Warren Commission.
But the second shooter is irrefutable.
Exactly. Look at the Warren Commission. You've got Dulles on the Warren Commission, and you've got Gerald Ford on the Warren Commission. Remember, years later, you get a president that wants to drain the swamp. They suddenly come up with charges on his vice president, Spiro Agnew. Get rid of him. Then put in President Ford or Vice President Ford that no one has ever even heard of, but he's their boy. And then get rid of Nixon and make Ford the president. I mean, they can control. It is, all of this stuff is so shady. It looks to me, Barry, like what happened in 1963 was finally taking over the executive office, and we've never had a president in there that wasn't one of the CIA boys until today.
Yeah, I think that seems to be right. I've been hearing that for the last couple of years, and it seems to be getting clearer all the time. And we still have no Epstein files.
Right. Like, what is up with that? I'm with you on this whole thing. And just rant for a second. Come on, man. We've got the evidence. These people need to be in chains right now. Why aren't they?
Nobody is.
Not one. Not one.
And what bothers me is maybe more than anything is all the lawfare. And I'm not the Trump fan.
That's what we're talking about. Right.
I'm not a Trump fan. But the lawfare that was posed against him,
and still.
And still,
look
the
at these
impeachments, the meaningless
judges
impeachments. Yes, these judges.
that's stopping his entire agenda. It's lawfare. That's what we're dealing with. This is what the globalists have a hold of the law, our league. They've commandeered our third branch of government, the judicial system. They're all up in there.
I guess it's a really tough nut to crack here. I don't want to take my foot off the gas. I want to apply the pressure, and that's
Yes.
I mean about the arrests have to start being made, and the Epstein files not getting even any excuses, just not getting anything on that.
Right.
It's really bothersome.
No, it is.
I think we need to start wrapping up, Merle.
Yes, we do.
Let's go to your final story.
Yeah, so I wanted to just talk about the SpaceX deal here. I don't have notes in front of me on this, but I did want to just talk about it because first off, Barry, I think you and I had something in common. But as a kid, I was very much into the Apollo missions and wanted to be an astronaut and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm jazzed by the moon and lunar landings and space and all that kind of stuff, all the space shuttles and everything. And now you got the International Space Station. Well, you got these astronauts that went up there on a mission in June, and they were supposed to be there for 10 days, and they ended up being there for over a year. They got stranded.
Right. Oh, could you imagine?
Oh, I can't. This is what I've been thinking about ever since that landing. Is that first off, I think I'm claustrophobic. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So, I cannot imagine being caught in that thing for like a year. Like how crazy I would be by the end of that. Like you don't have any room. You're stuck and you don't know if you're ever going to be able to come back home. That was really the case. They didn't know. It wasn't like they were like, oh, we're going to bring you back in March. They didn't know if they could ever come back. Like that's some crazy stuff right there. And it didn't seem like anybody cared. And so now you've got Elon Musk apparently is saying that there was a political reason why he wasn't asked to do this. And now that Trump's in there, he was able to go and rescue these people, and that's really what happened. It was a rescue
that's
happened.
A bad look on NASA.
It really is. And
it's
NASA,
a bad look.
Listen, Barry, I heard that NASA was saying that the reason they didn't do it was they didn't have the funding. Look, NASA gets funding of something like $36 billion a year. Are you
They need
kidding
an audit.
me?
Yeah,
You couldn't come up there and get it. But anyway, this I've been so impressed with the SpaceX rockets. In fact, Barry, I've seen several of them. Let me change that. 2 of them in my western sky, launching, shooting across the sky. It's startling to see it. It's quite amazing, actually. But then when you see these things, these ships come back and land, and then you could reuse them. I mean, are you kidding me? Talk about efficiency and such a thing of beauty. You go NASA, they just throw those things out, and here this guy figured out how to reuse this stuff. It's beautiful. Anyhow, watching that landing the other day, that capsule, after seeing these guys were going something like 7,000 miles per hour. And when that capsule hits the ground or hits the water, it is just like a feather landing on the ground in the water. And hearing the woman say the names of the people on board and from SpaceX, welcome home. I got
a video
up.
for you.
Let's see it.
It's from Al Jazeera. I'm going to try a different share method. There's a couple. I hope that you come along with me on this.
Oh, look at that. Cool.
I'm not sure if I can. But
Stuck in space. The NASA crew testing the first manned flight of Boeing's Starliner spacecraft's return trip from the International Space Station is delayed indefinitely.
This is a tough business that we're in. Human spaceflight is not easy in any regime, and there have been multiple issues with every spacecraft that's ever been designed.
The issues with Boeing's spacecraft include degraded rocket thrusters, possibly damaged during the crew's flight to the ISS on June 5th and 6th, as well as leaking helium tanks. The small thrusters allow the craft to maneuver and fine-tune its position for safe re-entry to the Earth's atmosphere. The helium allows those thrusters to fire. The mission that was supposed to last 10 days has stretched to over a month now. NASA engineers on Earth are working on simulators to figure out and correct the problems. And the crew says the issues do not threaten their safety.
We're absolutely confident.
It feels good to be in space and work up here with the International Space Station team. So, yeah, it's great to be up here. So I'm not complaining. Butch isn't complaining that we're here for a couple weeks, extra weeks.
The Starliner program has taken years longer than forecast and is more than $1 billion.
Did you want to? I thought that was enough, wasn't it?
Yeah. So they were stuck up there. They thought they were only going to be there for a couple of extra weeks, but it turned out to be 9 months.
Right. Unbelievable.
Can you imagine that?
Dude, I could not. I absolutely could not. What did that share? I guess I'll figure it out, find out when I do the production of this. I don't know what that share looked like. What did it look like?
It looked really cool. You should have expanded your screen for the video, because I could see the article there too. But it was still really cool in the background. I like that.
But you didn't come along with it, right?
Well, I just thought the landing. I actually sent you a clip of that yesterday to your text messaging, and it's like about 10 or 15 seconds, and I'm not going to be able to pull that up. But when it landed in the water, and then those parachutes came into the water as well, it just looked so beautiful and serene.
It's a really nice day there.
Oh, it was, and it almost looked not real. And then the welcome back, I thought, it kind of reminded me of Star Trek. Welcome home.
And we're going to stand by.
Make it
for
bigger. Make
splashdown,
the picture bigger.
Located in the Gulf of America, off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida.
Make it full screen if you can. Yeah, those arrows on the side.
And splashdown. Crew 9 there. Back on Earth.
We'll do that right there.
Look at that!
And
that was
splashdown.
Cool.
Crew 9
so
back on
cool,
Earth.
Mary.
That was beautiful.
Wait, you gotta keep playing it.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Keep showing it. This is. I like. Look at those. Look at those parachutes. How beautiful they are.
They are. It's like they were. That was taken into account.
Main release.
Copy splashdown. We see main chutes cut. Nick, Alex, Butch, Sunny, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
Wow, dude, that was really cool.
Dude, that is so awesome. It's so America right there.
Yeah.
I love that. And it looked so good when you expanded it out.
Oh, I wish I would have thought of that.
Behind you. You did it. It looked beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of America for that.
Yeah, it took a little doing. We had to overcome some big obstacles, and we did.
Man, what great news. You don't get to see good news. That was great news, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good note to end on.
Let's end it up.
Yeah, with that, hope that you guys go to over50startingover.com and sign up to get this on the email list. You get this to your email box as it happens. Please leave us questions and comments on our YouTube channel, and that is Over 50 Starting Over. I got a doggy in the window behind me.
You do.
Yeah, with that, let's sign up for Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and listen to us in your leisure. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend tomorrow.
Take care now.
Hey there, Over 50 Starting Over friends. Mark Tennant back with you with your AI tip of the week. This week, why your knowledge and experience will trump youth every time when it comes to AI. Let's get rolling. As we've talked about, we've been working with ChatGPT and AI for a number of weeks now, and I sure hope you have. And as an Over 50, I have to ask, what are your thoughts now? Now, I get it. Having to learn something new, and probably to keep your job, it's tough. I understand. But the best part is, it's still early in terms of adoption for you to become AI literate. Odds are, right now, if you learn AI, you'll be so far ahead than anybody who does what you do, especially at your department or at your company. The reality is your work career experience plus your life knowledge equals an advantage over youth every single time. Think about it. You're the one who knows your business, and I've come up with 5 reasons to kind of illustrate the point. Number 1, judgment and decision making. You have years of experience and you've refined your judgment. You know when you're evaluating AI output how to apply that critical thinking with years of experience and how it applies to your business. Number 2, client and customer relationships. You understand people deeply. You've built those relationship skills, even if it's been internal relationships. You've built those over many years, clearly giving you an edge over your younger colleagues. Number 3, institutional knowledge. You know why things work, why they work the way they do, and how they work. And crucial when you're implementing AI skills, because you'll need to integrate those with established business systems and processes. You know these. Number 4, mentorship capability. Think about this one. Your years of experience positions you perfectly to guide younger colleagues. When you're balancing AI tools with your judgment and business fundamentals, once again, mentorship capabilities, you can hand those down to the youth. You've got the advantage over them every single time. And number 5, communication excellence. Decades of presentations, negotiations, difficult conversations. You've had those conversations. And this allows you to translate AI business concepts into business values, certainly much better than your younger colleagues. Those were 5 quick reasons I came up with that you can take the lead on AI at your business, where you work, or at your organization. So let's do a quick communication excellence example is what I decided to call this. The scenario is your company is evaluating a new AI customer feedback tool. So your younger colleague will try to impress with the algorithms and percentages and accuracy rates, but the decision makers will sit there and go, what in the world did I just listen to? When you translate the technical speak into clear business language that you know and that the executives and C-suite in your business or company know, they'll immediately understand. And once again, you've got that advantage. So no matter how technically advanced youth skills are with technology and those types of things, they still can't compete simply from a life skills standpoint. Use AI to your advantage. Become AI literate. As I've always said, just have that conversation with the AI. So what's your best learning style? Well, there is my podcast, AI After 50. We do a lot on that. Plus, there's all kinds of learning resources online for free. Just pick a tool. ChatGPT probably is best because we've been using that for so long and so many weeks. And again, learn how to prompt effectively. Learn how to talk to the AI. So, as I said, your experiences is your ace in the hole. Remember, just talk to the AI, use AI every day, and your best AI learning resource could be AI After 50. Till next time, take care.